What is up, everyone? Welcome to TCR Live on our new night, Tuesday nights, getting ready for real football. So we're going to move out of the Thursday night slot so that we don't have any conflict with actual games. So we're going to be doing Tuesday nights here going forward. And as always, I am joined by Aaron Van Buren, but I have a new guest with us who I'll introduce to you in a second, Mr. Evan Bowerly. Aaron, how are you, sir?
Very busy. And those who are watching can get to see my cat, Weiler, in the background. But very busy. Just accepted a dream position of mine, and started trying to laugh because the cat. Just staying busy and just going through all this waves of Cardinals news, and it's been a lot.
That cat is made for showbiz. It's just ready to perform.
She must know the camera's on because she has not played with that thing in forever.
We've got 3 cats, so I totally get that. Well, we are also honored to be joined by Coach Evan B. of the He's on Fire podcast. Some of you might know him. If you don't know him, subscribe to his podcast. His YouTube channel is down below. Follow him on Twitter. Does great stuff, covers all the Arizona sports. Evan, I know I just kind of introduced you, but tell folks a little bit more about yourself. Introduce yourself to the fine folks here in the chat.
Yeah, at Coach Evan B on Twitter. Follow me there. I'm very active on Twitter, so interact with me. I guarantee you I'll interact with you. But we do He's on Fire podcast with my co-host Jay Joyce and Amit. We've been doing it for almost a year now, which is crazy to even think about. We've been over on the ASAP Sports Network as well over there. We're just talking about anything and everything when it comes to Arizona sports. You know, all the big headlines, a lot of Cardinals, a lot of Suns. Suns are my first love, so I go there, but then Cardinals are a close second. Arizona State when there's something relevant to talk about there and all that stuff, and then the D-backs dumpster fire that is. So we try to cover everything, and I just want to talk about the things that I am passionate about, and I happen to find 2 guys that are just as passionate about Arizona sports like I am. And then here we are, getting ready to connect with us and just make more magic happen when it comes to the Arizona sports scene. So let's hope for a good season, man.
Yeah, and on that note, one of the reasons we've invited Evan on here, I'm going to have to not get you guys mixed up, Evan on here, is Evan has just recently joined us on azsportsunderground.com. If you aren't already checking out the website, AZ Sports Underground, we're going to be covering all the Arizona sports with a lot of great writers, and Evan is going to be joining us doing some writing, getting some of the podcast stuff in there. So we're real excited. When Kyler and I launched the site, we both had Evan near the top of our list, or at the top of our list of people we want to reach out to. We're fans of his podcast. He does good work, and we're just really excited to have him working with us and help him grow his platform, while he works with us. So we're just excited about it. Let's say hey to some of the folks in the chat. We got Nutsack here. Just remember the Cardinals are going to be on Hard Knocks this year. Yeah, the mid-season Hard Knocks. They've already had a few. I bet the folks, at HBO are kind of kicking themselves or wishing they would have had the Cardinals in the preseason, because there would have been a ton of drama for that. Let's hope things settle down and the midseason version is tame. Silver Wolf AZ, DJ Humphries extended through 2025. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that. And then some side eyes from some podcast dude here. I don't know what that's all about.
Some weird dude with a really good logo, though.
Right. That is that logo is fire, dare I say? Oh, boo. Ooh. All right. And we got Brian Perkins, Ella1, who is a really great supporter of the channel. Really, really thoughtful, dude. Really appreciate you. TCR earlier in the week is beyond awesome. Thanks, fellas. You the man, Joe. You the man, Brian. You the man. We got Jordan P in the house. DJ just got overpaid as hell, but Kime can't draft linemen, so it's whatever. We'll talk about that a little bit. I mean, it's a market. I think players are going to get overpaid if you're looking at it that way, but we'll talk about that more. We got Paul G, a walking Arizona Cardinals historian. I met Paul at the Jacksonville game. Good dude who just has been following Cardinals longer than I've been alive, knows his history. We got Deontay Singleton. Thanks for being here. Hey. Appreciate you. Paul says, Evan B, great to have you here.
Thank you, Paulie.
Yeah, absolutely. Hump only fell off after he got COVID. Other than that, LTs aren't easy to find. He needs to get back on his high PFF. I mean, last year or 2 years ago, he was the fourth highest graded tackle according to PFF, and then last year was rough. So, Silver Wolf saying congrats to you, AVB, on your
Thank you,
job.
sir.
And who's this dude? Oh, we got Bird's Eye View, Tyler. And
Yeah, he got
then
benched tonight. I'm just kidding.
yeah, he's in the infirmary. He's on the IR.
Feel better, dude.
Yeah. We definitely hope you feel better, Kyler. Classic Nasty with the side eyes as always because of family. Arizona Cardinals training camp. All right, and then please don't call me Stephen Ross. All right. So we got some folks in the chat. Appreciate y'all being here. So let's get real quick. There's some news that obviously we talked about. So let's kind of talk about some of the things that have happened this week. Kyler Murray tested positive for COVID. That's not great news, but I suppose, I don't know, better now than the regular season, where it's not going to cost him games. That's a silver lining, right? Symptoms are minor. It hopefully doesn't have lingering
effects. Get it out of the way now.
Yeah. Some players have had, it's had some lingering effects on some players in terms of their performance. So here's hoping, it doesn't do that for him. And then there was other good news that Hollywood Brown came off the non-football injury list. Looks like they're kind of easing him back in, but when he had that kind of, I think it was a hamstring injury that they were talking about, and folks were worried about that, but it looked like it was a mild thing and precautionary. But then the big news. Cardinals tweeted out that they extended DJ Humphries and the smile is staying in the Valley. And then the details came out. Ian Rappaport, just moments before we went on, that they had agreed to a contract that was a 3-year extension worth $66.8 million. We just before we went on, we looked at that, and that makes him on a per season average the third highest paid tackle right now in the NFL. Behind, it was behind Trent Williams and David Bakhtiari, and just ahead of Laramie Tunsil. But there's going to be new contracts, signed that going to push that down the list. But let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit. As our guest, Evan, once you get us started on your thoughts on the Humphries extension.
I feel like it's a match made in heaven. It's a homegrown player. He's staying longer. He knows everybody here. I mean, playing with Kyler Murray is going to be different than playing with like a Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, more stand-up quarterback. And so now in year, 3, 4 for Kyler Murray, he knows Kyler well. Everything, in my opinion, is leading to this because after this year, give another starting offensive lineman that has a salary that you can count on. Sure, Rodney Hudson is, but we can't count on him after this year, right? That's already been proven. Mm-hmm. So you got Pugh and guys on the right side who we kind of question. So having a stalwart there, having that guy there ready to go for the next 3 years, is it through 2025, is actually huge, especially at the contract that he has now. I think it's a good contract right now. You kind of spoke on it like right beforehand, and I didn't even know it happened until 10 minutes before the pod. And so now as I've thought about it, what you said, that may be like the third or fourth highest tackle now, but 2, 3, 4 years down the road, when that media money hits, I bet you he'll be like 8th or 9th at that point. Right. Mm-hmm. So we have 150 million on the contracts on the books this year and 110 next year. And this just opens up a bevy of opportunity for us. And now we don't have to go hunting for a left tackle that we solely need. And that's the important thing you have to remember too. So I think he's a top 5 tackle talent wise. He just has to go out and prove it. And I think he will this year.
Yeah. Aaron, what do you think?
Well, I was trying to see if there were more details because I'm getting, as I talked to you before, I don't know how they really pulled this off. I mean, Spotrack's reporting 2 things on the estimated cap space of the top 51. Let me page refresher. It says estimated cap space it says we're 20 mil over, but then it says top 51 that we have 9 million cap space. So I'm really interested to see what number is really true and how they pulled this off, because this has to be such a backloaded contract. So there's my numerical thought on it. But I mean, Humphries kind of really reeled it around and changed his career, because for a while it was pretty rocky, and he's become for younger generation, and Joe, maybe you could say this too, but like the closest thing we've had to a Dan Dierdorf since he last retired in 79. Paul G probably knows that off the top of his head. But the Cardinals haven't had a franchise left tackle in a very long time, besides the very short gasps of like Jared Veldier when he was okay. He did pretty good for a little bit. Dare I even say Reggie Wells back in the day? He was a guard, wasn't he?
Yeah. I'm going to throw a name out there for you because I'm old. Luis Sharp.
Oh, my goodness. How can I forget?
Nice.
Yep. There it is. So Dan Dierdorf, Luis Sharp, and then DJ Humphries. Not particularly in that order, but it's good to see. And as Kyler tweeted out before, none of the Cardinals' offensive line was signed for next year up until this happened. So at least we got arguably one of the most important pieces done already. So I think it's well deserved. Do I really like the money? I don't know. I have to see the numbers before I even get into that. So,
yeah. So, just let me comment a few things on the money side of things. So it's an extension. He signed, he's under contract this year. So the first year of the contract is next season, right? So, Rappaport says 21 million in year one. So that 21 million is actually next season. It'll be interesting to see how they structure it. I'm not a capologist, but I do know there are some things they can do that potentially might have actually saved them some cap room this year. I don't know that Spot Track is going to have that all accurate right now.
They do have stuff up for 2022. Sorry, you can go.
Yeah. But sometimes when someone gets signed like this, takes time for them to figure out all the cap implications of this signing. In terms of what the cap, and this is why it's so tricky to figure the salary cap at this point, because you talked about the top 51. The way that NFL does salary cap in the preseason, the 51 largest salaries, annual or yearly salaries, count against the cap, right? So obviously going in the cap, you have 90 guys on the roster going into training camp, and obviously those guys, you'd be way over the cap if you count all of those. So the way that they deal with the things in the preseason is that they say, okay, the top 51 contracts, that's how we figure the cap for now, and then week one, your 53-man roster that you settle on, that's what the cap is based on at that point, right? So it gets a little tricky. If the Cardinals sign a guy, who's making the league minimum, it doesn't necessarily actually add that amount to their salary cap because it bumps someone off that top 51. So it gets a little tricky.
Explained this before now.
So that's a little wonky. But so I'll be interested to see what this matters for now. But and Evan, you made a good point, and you reiterated this, Aaron. After 2022, the only offensive linemen that were under contract were Josh Jones, the two guards they drafted this year, and Rodney Hudson, which that contract obviously doesn't mean he'll be playing. As we're in that kind of Larry Fitzgerald territory now, where it's a yearly kind of a thing. So having DJ Humphries under contract, I know some people think he was overpaid. Some people aren't big fans of him, but the talent is there. He's been up and down a little bit in his career. He had a PFF grade of 88.3 in 2020, but fell back to 67.5. But even his off years have been in the mid 60s as far as PFF grades, and that's not horrendous. So he kind of has gone back and forth between kind of an average low end starting tackle at his worst to an elite starting tackle at his best. So he's got that upside. So and there is one point that I think is worth noting. And Ryan, thanks for being here. It makes this point. I'm confused why we waited so long.
Yeah.
Not just me, a lot of people talked about earlier in the preseason or in the offseason, talking about, hey, extending DJ Humphries could clear up some cap space if we structured it right. So going into free agency, a lot of people, myself included, thought this was a move they would make then to create some space. So why that didn't happen sooner, I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't ready to. Maybe he wanted to see what kind of money people were going to make in the, free agency before he was willing to. Maybe they never planned to spend big in free agency because they're going to have 3 compensatory picks So maybe, I kind of think that they were always playing to try to go with depth budget players and keep those compensatory picks. I don't know. I'm glad they signed him. I think the upside's there. I think it's hard to replace him. They don't, like he said, they don't grow on trees, right? Other thoughts? I know I kind of just monologued for a bit. Anyone want to jump in?
You're fine. Elowin5 in the chat just had the point I was literally just thinking of. Was Hump really sick or was he holding out?
Yeah, he's got a stomach virus, right? It's called I ain't got a contract extension virus, right?
Hey, is he going to show up tomorrow? I don't blame him for holding out. I'll never blame a player for holding out, especially when you get it on this type of a deal. And I think this proves again that the Cardinals are willing to pay. So some of those things that we've heard from Rashad Johnson, Tyrann Mathieu, and Patrick Peters, and all those things, and you're not going to get paid there. Well, I think this just proves again that ownership is willing to put in the money to be able to pay and keep guys around, which sends a good message. It absolutely does, and it's an important message if you are an Arizona Cardinal fan and if you play for them. So we'll see if he shows up tomorrow. If he shows up tomorrow, obviously we know, right?
Yeah, and Kyler Bird is saying here, this is a big moment for the franchise. They drafted and re-signed a left tackle. I think that's important. We've taken Steve Keim to task for his drafting, and again, some people may not love DJ Humphries, but if you get a starting left tackle late in the first round that's going on a third contract, I'd say that's a win. Mm-hmm. And then they extended the quarterback they signed. Has this ever been done here? Right? When was the last time this has happened here? Right? At the same time, at least.
Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say something, but it's not really pursuing the conversation. But I do have those numbers, at least what SportTrack has right now. Mm-hmm. According to SportTrack, or however you say it, Humphrey's base salary is $14 million, $800,000 signing bonus, a $1 million roster bonus, a restructure amount of $3.5 million for a cap hit of 19.3 this year.
So I think that's what it was before. So I don't know. I wonder if it stayed the same or if they just don't have. Yeah.
Well, they updated. They have the blank years following that. I haven't looked at it before, so I didn't know if that was new or not.
It's not uploaded yet. I'm sure it's. I mean, they have the terms up there and the average salary, but nothing's hit yet.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, let me say to a couple folks. We got Lance S, really good dude. Gents, elbow cough. Appreciate you being here. And then we've got Dal Facini Jr. Thanks for being here. Good to see you, TCR. Hope all is well. Go Cards. Appreciate you. Longtime subscriber to the channel. Definitely appreciate you. And then we have a question for you. I know you already talked about this, Evan, but Ryan wants to know, what's the bottom guy drinking? You're not the bottom guy in my list. Just so you know.
Wasatch Apricot Half. It's the last beer that I had before I got to head to the store before the weekend. So as a thought, coming on the Cardinal Rule for the first time, might as well have a good drink and enjoy myself.
Awesome, man. Cheers to that. So let's see. So anyway, I think this is I think this is a good move. I know not everyone will agree. Anyone who says you overpaid for him, you're not going to get him for less than that. I mean, this is
especially not in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. I know some people, kind of say that about like quarterback contracts, but the reality is it's a market and there's a going rate and there's a range. You were not going to get him for 15 million, 17 million. You either sign him or don't, right? So, and Paul's saying, you pay for a left tackle, you pay for top quarterback, you pay for an edge rusher, you pay for a tight end and one wide receiver, then you pray your team has good scrubs.
That's exactly. Well, that's how you build a team. One, you can't win without a quarterback. Then you got to protect your quarterback. Then you got to go after the quarterback. Someone's got to catch the passes, and then you hopefully fill in the rest. That's completely correct. I agree.
I don't think you necessarily need a tight end to compete.
I think you don't need to pay big money for a tight end. That's true. There's only a handful of those guys, but I think you need to. I think here's what I would say: you probably need two. You need to probably pay 2 good pass catchers, right? Whether it's a couple tight receivers or tight end and receiver. Right.
Just look at the Seahawks all those years, all the freaking god dang annoying tight ends up there. I don't even want to get into it.
Yeah, for sure.
The guys who would do nothing except catch touchdown passes against the Cardinals.
88 yards and 3 touchdowns, right?
Oh man, you're those are some traumatic memories. So Lance saying, not my money. Good, great player, awesome person, fantastic locker room guy, winning. Yeah, there you go. I'm not having to pay it, right? Jordan P's wondering what those incentives are in the contract. Only about 30 million is guaranteed, so be interesting to see.
So I got a quick question I want to pose for you about Hump. Johnny Venerable from PHNX Sports, he put out a very interesting tweet yesterday. What top tier guys would you say that the Arizona Cardinals have? And I responded and I said, K1, D-Hop, and Buddha. In my opinion, those are our top 3. For me, tier 2, right underneath that, like 1A, 1B, if you will. You could say JJ Watt. You could say, some would say Connor. I don't know if I'd put him quite right there, but I said Humphreys. I put Hump right there. I think he has the talent, and I think last year was more of an outlier of who he is. And you know what? This kind of reminds me of the DeAndre Ayton situation. It's like, all right, well, you dipped down a little bit this season. How are you going to do next season now that you got paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can we hold him to a higher accountability now that he really got his bag and got paid? But would you count Humph in that maybe not necessarily top tier on our team, but definitely like a 1A, 1B situation where he's just down a little bit? Or do you think he's got some room he needs to grow into?
That's a great question because, and I'm gonna share a screen. What I'm gonna share here
and he's 29 years old too. Keep that in mind.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna share. This is his PFF grades. Okay, and I know it's a little hard to see. I don't know if I can make it a little bigger. The 2016 68.3, then 2017 81.7, then down to 70, then 64, then up to 88, then down to 67. So he's been up and down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you wonder, is this 88.3 really where he should be, or is in the 67.5? Is that him just going on this up and down road, or is that lingering effects from COVID, right? And that's absolutely possible that that's what it is. That's such a tough question. I think when you pointed out that his talent is there, I agree with that. He has the tools to be a tier 1. I'd probably say right now, I can live with calling him a tier in that second tier. I'd probably also put Jalen Thompson there, but I think he's a vastly underrated.
Oh, don't get me started on Jalen Thompson. I am the biggest Jalen Thompson stan. Let me tell you what.
Good luck.
After this year, I agree. After this year, I agree.
Yeah. So, they call him the eraser for a reason, right? Yeah, there you go. And listen, other folks, Hudson, his grades have been down a little bit, but man, what he brings, I think he's definitely that tier 2, if not tier 1.
I would agree, tier 2, 100%. I think I put him on that tweet. I just spaced.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you probably have to. I think you probably have to say with Humphreys probably tier 2. I don't think he's done it consistently enough to merit tier 1. But man, the talent's there, right? So for sure. Is Andy Lee top tier? That's a good question. Maybe
Matt Prater sure as hell is.
There
He's
we go.
In the A tier, absolutely.
he had a little bit of a rough stretch there for us, but it's still better than what we've had, right? And then Jordan said he put JJ in tier 1 personally. He'd wrecked games by himself last year, and whole run defense fell apart. With JJ, it's just health, right? If he's healthy, I think you have to bake into that you just don't know how confident you are he's going to be there for even 12 or 14 games. Ertz, it's interesting. I mean, he played so well when we brought him back, but when we trade for him but there's also a reason that like Philly traded him away. He's kind of he has lost his step, but he looked good for us. So hopefully, I think Ertz is probably one of those guys that's like JJ, that's kind of in that could be tier 1, but maybe tier 2. So. Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to kind of pivot towards, or what I kind of want us to talk about, is this question of, and folks in the chat, please do chime in on this. What has your attention coming out of camp? What is it that you're paying attention to? Is whether it be a battle for a position, a certain player you're watching, seeing kind of how they're developing, a storyline? What is it coming out of camp that kind of has your eye right now? So Aaron, why don't you get us started? What are some of the things? Give us maybe one or two things out of camp that kind of have your attention.
I mean, in a way, this is such a tough question because we haven't even been allowed to even focus on anything that's actually going on in the practice field with everything that's been off of it.
Mm-hmm.
I see this as kind of a cop out answer, but I don't have anything other than just wide receivers.
Okay.
Who's really going to step up with that? The rest of everything else, I guess maybe cornerback too. Who's really stepping up? Like today, seeing that Marco Wilson picked off a pass going to Hopkins, and then that started the shenanigans. But that's exactly what you want to see from Wilson, who just hit the ground so hard towards the last end of the season because he got Byron Murphy 2.0'd. And so I guess I would say more the cornerback room than the wide receivers, but definitely that's where my eye is because somebody else mentioned, do we still have money to go and get some corners? And I hope that we do because the group that we have right now is not going to cut it.
Yeah. Evan, what are you kind of paying attention to coming out of camp?
When you initially contacted me about the show, you said think of 3 players. Is that still a question later that I need to save this answer for?
More or less this. Yeah.
More or less
I probably
this?
changed it up.
So I kind of had one thing in mind and then something popped up during camp. So I kind of got 2 things. And the second thing was Jalen Thompson calling plays. And now we're kind of hearing, now all these linebackers are starting to get the plays called into them too. So I'm really curious is that who is going to be that stalwart in the middle to call the plays? Is it going to be a safety? What's that going to look like? And does that mean that they're going to play up towards the line of scrimmage a little bit more like we kind of been seeing? Or are they trying to drop back? But if they're calling plays, where are they lining up? I'm really curious, intrigued, and also a little bit worried about who's going to be calling plays and how that's going to affect everybody. Can the guy in the very back be able to communicate to the defensive lineman like fast? I think that's a legitimate thing to think about. So worried about that. Mm-hmm. And then it's not really a one position group, but it kind of is. It's the whole defensive line, man. And it's these 3 players, in my opinion. It's Rashard Lawrence, Lecky Fotu, and Zach Allen. Zach Allen's going to be a free agent, and those other 2 guys got 2 years left, or I got 1 year left after this. And I dare say, if one of them throws up another nine tackles or something like that, they're not going to be on the roster next year. Mm-hmm. Who's going to step up for us to be a competitive football team? And I'm talking about competitive in the playoffs, competing for a championship, NFC championship, all that stuff. We need to have, outside of JJ Watt, minimum of 2 defensive linemen step up. One of them needs to show some things. Like we need Zach Allen to get 6, 7, 8 sacks, and we don't need somebody wrangling up 50, 60 tackles up the middle. We just need somebody that you can depend on that could play every snap. Go instead of subbing in and out. I want Rashard Lawrence to be able to stay out there 2, 3, 4 drives in a row. You know what I mean? Or Lecky Fotu to do something. We need 2 of those defensive linemen to hit. Now I know we got Kingsley Kike, and we got Cameron Thomas that we drafted. A lot of good buzz coming out of him, and even Myjai Sanders, which I'm sure you've covered. But 2 of those 3 guys, in my opinion, have to hit, and that's really rolling the dice on that defensive line outside of JJ Watt. So that's what's got my attention.
Yeah, and the defensive line, there's a cascading effect with those linebackers, right? I mean, because, I was fortunate enough to get Brett Coleman to Livestream join up my Livestream last season, and asked him about the struggles of the linebackers. And and one of the things he talked about was that that defensive line may be part of the problem there. We're not eating up those blocks, right?
Yep.
So we talk about what the Cardinals have invested in terms of draft capital in that inside linebacker with Simmons and Collins, and and how they've kind of struggled and haven't lived up to what people hoped, and that defensive interior line is kind of part and parcel with that. So I'm with you on that. Rashard Lawrence, I'm a big fan of what he did last year when he came back from injury. He was actually one of the few people who was good against the run. but he's got to stay healthy. Lecky Fotu has not kind of broken through. I was listening to Vance Joseph during one of his press conferences that the Arizona Cardinals posted on YouTube, and he was talking about Fotu, how Fotu has done a good job of kind of adding some speed. So we'll see. Zach Allen is a guy who has some struggles staying healthy. He is a guy that if they can keep him healthy, could be add to that pass rush. So yeah, that defensive interior is a question. I'm surprised they didn't do more to address it, at least with like a nose tackle. I know they signed, I think it was Antoine Woods, who's kind of a former undrafted free agent, who's more of kind of a journeyman, and he's nice depth, but I would have thought
he's
they
a
might
third
have
stringer, right? He's a third stringer.
He's
We have so many
nose
third
tackles.
stringers.
With
Timmy KG's never played.
Right.
It's
Michael
baffling.
Dogby.
Yeah,
he's hardly
more
played.
the end.
I mean, Angelo Blackson, he was like 6th, 7th round pick, and I still wish he was still on the team because he did what you were talking about, have somebody who needs to go up and have those tackles. Yep. And if I could just rebuttal your point, is no, like we do need someone to have 50, 60 tackles who does play in the middle of the line. We don't need sacks from a nose tackle. If they get it, it's great. We need run defense because the way Dalvin Cook and everybody ran on us last year was pitiful. And that's got to stop if our defense wants to have any chance at helping the corners, when they go for play action.
Yeah.
And who was it that said in interviews today, they said, what's your defensive plan to get stops and give Kyler the ball?
I think
that was Zaven Collins.
Yeah, that was Zaven Collins said that today. Well, there you go. And to your point, Joe, they're leaving the linebackers out to dry, man. Because now all of a sudden you got a 330-pound guard that can run coming at Zaven Collins, who's a deer in the headlights. Like, what do you think's going to happen? JJ Taylor is going to go up the middle for 60-some-odd yards.
Well, that's why we should have never gotten rid of Jordan Hicks. And I still don't like the Zaven Collins pick. It was
Nick Vigil is going to have a really good year.
Yeah,
he's going to have an underrated.
He's going to have to. I mean, I'm not doubting him, but he's going to have to prove it to me.
I mean, he hasn't. He's a guy who's kind of he hasn't graded particularly well in his career. He's kind of a depth guy. I think he's fine for the rotation of veteran in there. The last year, the Cardinals, they seem to like to play 3 middle linebackers and move some of them around and rotate them. So he's probably that third guy. Real quick, I want to say hey to some of the folks who popped in here. The Walker going to practice tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing Simmons. Awesome.
Lucky.
Enjoy that. Yeah, jealous. Mr. Mono, appreciate you being here. Yeah, I think Jabba clears up quick for Humphreys. I think you are right there. And let's see, Dennis Hauser here. Thanks for being here. Brett, if transitioning to 4-3, so they're not, is to my knowledge, they are not transitioning to a 4-3. I know
you're still
what you see with
tackles,
them.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, they're technically a 3-4, but they play a lot of nickel, which is kind of that 4-2-5 or whatever. Where what they do, and I know I've said this a lot, but on early down, sometimes they'll have the 3 interior defensive linemen and those outside linebackers on the edge, that 5-man front, so to speak. And then in nickel, what they do is they get that nose tackle out of there and they move those 2 defensive ends into tackle. And it looks like a 4-3 front, but it's really a 4-2-5. So, I mean, a nose tackle is still considered a 1 or 2 down position in the NFL. And, the Cardinals historically have liked to have a guy who can play the nose, but can also stay in on those nickel downs and be one of those defensive tackles. So they, it's a little tricky. They don't really have a true nose, but they need someone who they can play at the nose, if that makes sense. So
Hicks was not awful last year, Jordan. That is
Hicks was Hicks was a little slow, but he against the run, I think, but he wasn't horrible.
Smart, cerebral guy. The defensive line in front of him didn't do very well, especially once JJ Watt went down. And when you only play 3 men on a 5-man front, you technically have 2 guys who can go right up to the linebackers and cover them up, unless you're sending a blitz or whatever. So I'm going to stay where I am on Hicks, and I'll just leave it at that.
But at that price that he was at, I think it made sense to cut him now and let the young guys grow, because they were taking the snaps away from him to a point, and you got to throw these guys into the fire at some point. They have to go out and play and make their own mistakes. But you also couldn't put Hicks. Correct. that's a completely different conversation. We can have that conversation whenever you want. I'm ready to go off on Keim on that type of thing. But you're also putting Hicks in a lot of pass coverage and a lot of zone coverage where he got burned because he's not that dude. And that's not his fault either. That was not his fault being put in those situations. So is Nick Vigil better at defending the pass? I mean, he intercepted us last year, right? When we played him.
That's what Simmons' job's supposed to be.
You mean our safety slot corner hybrid?
If he is a safety, that pick is a failure.
Yeah, I think hopefully what we're going to see is that Vigil doesn't have to play out in space that much covering. I think, Simmons will be doing a lot of that, but yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. But, Hicks, I think one of the reasons I think Vance Joseph really liked him is he trusted him calling the defense. And it's one of those things where what he offers between the years was first rate, right? Veteran, knows the stuff. It's just he was, father time and some injury history. He didn't have that step. He was slow, hitting the gap. He was slow on certain plays. And you need those twitchy younger guys to be able to, make those plays. So that's what we're hoping for. Right. I think, something that I'm really watching is the cornerback group. And I know you talked about that, Aaron, and, and that's a group where I agree they need to bring in a veteran, someone like Joe Hayden, perhaps Kyler Bird just wrote a really great article on azsportsunderground.com where he talked about 3 free agents that would be a good fit for the Cardinals that are still available. Go check that out. So, I think they need to bring someone in, but the 2 players I'm really intrigued by, obviously, is Marco Wilson, physical tools to the ceiling, right, and beyond. The question with him has always been the processing side of it, even going back to college, right? The decision making, but the physical tools are there to be an elite corner. And the fact that he started as a 4th round rookie is a good thing. I mean, that is to his credit, but he did struggle. He was one of the worst starting cornerbacks in the NFL, but rookies at that position are going to struggle. So I'm really interested to see what kind of development he makes. What, does he, in terms of his processing, does he take that step forward? Because, the upside, I mean, you look at a guy like AJ Terrell for the Falcons, who struggled his rookie year and then was like a top 4 or 5 cornerback last year. I'm not saying Wilson's going to do that, but that illustrates how a cornerback can take a leap, after they can struggle their first year like AJ Terrell did, and they can take a step forward. So I'm really interested, because if Wilson can take a step forward and even be a top 20 cornerback in the NFL, like that's a game changer for our secondary. And then the other guy I'm watching is Josh Jackson, the guy they signed after a tryout in minicamp, former 2nd round pick of the Green Bay Packers, who hasn't really kind of, lived up to the draft status, but he, in college and at Iowa, I think his last year he had like 8 interceptions, and he's known to be a hard worker, and he seems to be popping in camp. I mean, he's made some good plays, and you keep hearing his name in a positive way. So I'm interested to see if either or both of those guys step up for us. So anything you guys want to add to that? Thoughts on that? Sorry?
Go ahead.
Marco will step up.
Yeah, you believe you're buying that?
I 100% buy. I'm all in on him.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us what your thought? Why? What gives you that confidence in him? I'm glad, but yeah.
Do you remember playing against the Rams on Monday Night Football? I actually flew out there and went to that game, so I promise not to go to a game this year. But he gave up one of the out routes that Cooper Kupp was having, and he was right there. Like, it was literally right there, and it just like squeezed right through his arms and went right to Cooper Kupp somehow. He was so pissed that happened. He was so pissed because he knew it was coming. It was premeditated. He pounced on it. It was just one of the weirdest. How did it go through this little right between my elbows hole? And he was so pissed about it. He was pissed on the sidelines. And then, unfortunately, I think it was next game he got hurt, and then he just wasn't right for the rest of the seasons. But the way that we had a 4th-round cornerback play in a system with a defensive coordinator who does not like playing rookies, and he was out there week in, week out, making play after play on OBJ, I'm drawing a blank on some of the other guys that he covered. Adam Thielen was one of them. Was impressive to watch. He is primed. He is young. He is spry. He is cheap. He's cheap right now as well, too. And when you're a 4th-round pick that thinks they should have gone in 1st round, you're going to have a major chip on your shoulder. And we see that. And that's something that we've kind of lacked on that defense, is that chippiness. And he has that.
Aaron, what do you think about Wilson?
I mean, he's got all the tools to succeed. I'm just waiting to see it, kind of neutral on him. Necessarily didn't like the pick. Actually, still don't, but that's besides the fact. I think he had some moments last year, but as Evan said, that once he was hurt, that was it, and that was the running theme for the secondary. Alfred gone, then Wilson got hurt, and then we're playing guys like Breon Borders, and maybe his cousin Freon will be on the team next year. But I think he's got the skills to do it. Just hoping for a good, semi-surprising jump, at least in my eyes. And I don't know. This whole chat is not as I am on the opposite side of it. I'm trying to
see. You are the dark side. I am the light side.
I mean, I kind of have the background for it right now.
Yeah, there you go. You got the. You look like a Sith Lord there right now. So yeah, that's awesome.
I barely know anything about Star Wars. I actually want to respond to Mono up in there about Kevin King.
Okay.
If I'm sorry, but if you are comfortable with Kevin King after watching that playoff performance and then trying to justify it, the fact that his PFF grades are good. PFF grades are like your BMI numbers. They're just hollow numbers. So I don't buy it at all. And it's more about the quality of the play and what is left, because with the Cardinals' luck, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, but something like that would happen and he would become a scapegoat in here. And so I don't want Kevin King in here. I don't want anybody who's, infamous in another city to come here. And that's where I'm going to leave that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think there's something to be said for a guy playing what role you have them play in, because, and I think, for example, Byron Murphy Jr. is a great example of that. Byron Murphy Jr. has struggled when they've played him as an outside cornerback one. Mm-hmm. His rookie year, he struggled when he had to do that, thanks to Patrick Peterson PED suspension. Last year, when they moved him to the slot, he played well. Last year, they moved him to the outside some and played him in the slot some, and it was hit or miss. In a perfect world, Byron Murphy Jr. is either a cornerback 2 or a slot corner. And Kevin King, I wouldn't want him as my cornerback 1, but if he's somewhere in the depth chart and covering the second or third receiver on a team, I think he's probably not that bad. But I will say, this hot take, and I know you were pointing at Evan. Did you want to comment on this Elawan's take here about Wilson versus Byron Murphy?
I found myself watching him and Jalen Thompson the most, because I just see that X factor, grind, gritty, junkyard dog mode. And those are the players I tend to gravitate to a lot more. Like Suns, for example, I was the biggest Bo Outlaw, the biggest PJ Tucker fan. Mm-hmm. I just love dudes that'll go in there in the nitty gritty, not afraid to mix it up with a Michael Jordan. I don't care who the hell you are. You're on the opposite side of me. I'm going to go at you as hard as I can, and I'm going to talk your ear off and do all that. And I saw that with Marco. I see that with Jalen Thompson. Byron Murphy from Arizona, from Saguaro, I completely agree with your assessment. He was a killer in the slot. Goes on the outside, it just doesn't work. And that's okay. You don't have to be the outside slot. There's a place for you on the team. That's okay. But having a guy like Marco, if we didn't have Marco Wilson or didn't draft him, where would we have been last year? we would have been way up Schitt's Creek, in my opinion. And he was able to be in there and be reliable. Did he get burned? Yeah, he got burned. He was a rookie. Give me a rookie cornerback that wasn't burned. Go back and look at Patrick Peterson. Even you can say he was an all-star Pro Bowler, but that was because he was a returner. It wasn't because he was good at being a defensive back, right? And he was the number 5 pick, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Again, 4th round pick, played hella good last year. Outside, great size, great speed. I believe he was a 5-star coming out of high school, if I'm not mistaken, and just made some dumb decisions as a kid, as we all have. And so this is his kind of revenge tour. I promise you, this is like his revenge tour from some of the stuff that I've heard, where he's coming out and he was pissed the way things ended last year. He's spoken about that Rams game a few times. He was pissed how that happened. We don't really get a lot of that. And I'm really excited to see where it comes. On the flip side, we've all seen where guys completely burn out after even just 1 year. So the hell do I know?
Well, I think the thing about Wilson here is he's more the prototypical outside corner. He's got the tools, the speed. Murphy, I think Murphy's just much more built for the slot, and that requires a difficult skill set. I mean, it's not a lesser role. It's an important role that you have to. Not everyone can play the slot well as a cornerback, and Murphy does it well. And you need to be able to get your nose in there and tackle. You need to be able to kind of cover running backs, tight ends, and receivers, and cover option routes and a lot of different things underneath. And Murphy's good in that role. Wilson just has it upside, and his physical tools, you kind of alluded to that, Evan, are just off the charts. I mean, I did a video about him when he got drafted, and where I kind of did a comp, and like his vertical jump, like there was only one guy I could find that was really a comp, and it was the guy. Dallas drafted him. He's now in Miami. Byron Jones, I think, who had a crazy vertical. Like that was the only guy, like, because Wilson's vertical was crazy, and his other stats were really good. Like just a high percentile athlete. He's just got to get the processing down, right? Between the ears. Real quick, let me say hey to a couple of folks that popped in here. We got Jose. Thank you for being here. It's football fighting with your brothers as normal. Talking about the disagreements in here. And also wanted to point out, I like this Coach Evan guy. Positive dude. Let's go Cards.
Hey,
little shout out from
Lance. Lance. I appreciate you. Thank you.
We got Meme Source, I guess, giving us all a W. We're I guess, I don't know. It's better than an L. I'll take the W. So yeah, I think so. The cornerback set's definitely something I'm watching. I'm also, and I know a couple of people comment on this, the rookie pass rushers, right? Myjai Sanders and Cam Thomas. Those guys have, there's been reports out of camp that Myjai has been really impressing. And Cam Thomas is, I listen to, I try to catch all the interviews that they post on the Cardinals YouTube channel. Vance Joseph was talking about them, and he said that he was really gushing about Sanders, and he was also talking about Cameron Thomas. He said both of them are going to have a role in sub packages and such, at least. So I think it sounds like that Sanders is kind of ahead, and here we go. Nasty is right. Sanders is showing more than Cameron Thomas right now. But one of the things a lot of people think is that, are concerned about, a lot of fans, is the pass rushing, with Chandler Jones gone. A lot of people are concerned that they don't have enough. Obviously we have Marcus Golden, who I absolutely love, one of my favorite Cardinal players ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we love Marcus Golden. But on the other side, it's Devin Kennard, it's Victor Dimukeji, it's Dennis Gardeck, and it's the 2 rookies. And that's a couple guys who are vets, but it's a lot of unproven players over there. So those rookies can step up. And Myjai Sanders to me is the most intriguing because of his twitchy first step. That's another thing I'm watching in terms of how those 2 guys step up. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Aaron, what do you think of the 2 rookies?
I mean, if one of them is actually going to somehow break into, Vance Joseph defense, then that's a testament to him.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I guess whoever makes it out of the two, great. That's going to be good to have some actual depth and actually see somebody play for once. I was hoping that would be more Cam Thomas. I think his build is more of what we need in the NFC West, especially with Trent Williams over there in San Francisco, and just the tough nature that you need. I feel like Sanders is almost as slim as like Dennis Gardeck is. And don't get me wrong, that's good. And of course, we only see so much. When you actually see NFL players in person, they're completely different. I mean, I'll never forget seeing Calais Campbell in 2013 in Green Bay in a preseason game and just thinking that human exists. And so, but I'm all for Sanders getting in, but I would still like to see a little bit more out of Thomas, just because I think he could hold down potentially from the 3 to 3 tech, and that's what we need a lot.
Yeah, and that's Brian here saying something more or less that Thomas has that potential to kind of have that flexibility to play that 3-4 and kind of what Zach Allen kind of plays really, but he also has the build to play on the outside. So having that kind of flexibility is kind of nice. Evan, what are your thoughts on the rookie pass rushers?
I don't care who gets the sacks. Someone needs to get the sacks. That's all I'm going to say. It does not matter to me. I'm not really too worried about not having Chandler Jones other than having just that name. You know what I mean? And I think we're going to be able to catch some people off guard because I do think Vance Joseph's system is something
that's
that
underrated.
It's something we can lean on, right? That's what I feel like. And we can kind of grow some of these guys. At the same time, that's the same system that left out Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons too. Yeah. So you take that for a grain of salt and what it's worth, but I think I see more on the pass rushing side when it comes to Vance Joseph than I do with like a hybrid Isaiah Simmons. So I'm excited about it. I like hearing about this, but I also heard the same thing about Isaiah Simmons. So you got to kind of play that with a grain of salt and whatever you do, for God's sakes, Cardinals fans, don't listen to anything you see or hear after preseason games. Those will not matter. I promise you, they do not matter. Everybody says that every year, the vanilla offense, vanilla this, or not showing anything. It's true, but everybody seems to forget and they go, oh, so-and-so had a bad game. Oh, we didn't have a pass rush. Oh, all that stuff. Like, don't get caught up in it and don't get too caught up in the reports. Take the tidbits here or there, but if you're getting that from 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of sources, I think there's a little more fire under there, where there's smoke, there's fire. So there's a little bit more smoke when everybody is starting to report on it. Definitely something to watch.
Yeah. And, people talking about Sanders, led the nation quarterback hurries last year. Maybe I don't remember. That's probably right. I just don't know that for a fact, but I know he was really good. I do know he played well against Alabama, which is something people talk about, and that matters. So real quick, want to say, hey, to, the Cattle Dog, what do y'all think? So we talked about the extension earlier. Generally, we were in favor of it. If you want to watch that later, catch the beginning of it. We spent a good bit of time, but yeah, that's in the news. So yeah, I think I'm intrigued to see how it plays out with those two rookie pass rushers. I think there's going to be a rotation there. I've said this before. I think on first down, you're going to, and maybe even second down, you're going to see a lot of the guy they got from, my brain isn't working. The guy they signed from Detroit. I said his name earlier.
Devon Kennard.
Devon Kennard. Thank you. So, I'm getting old. Sometimes the brain just doesn't work right.
The pride of Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So Kennard's good against the run, setting the edge. They'll probably play him early downs and then rotate those other guys in, and I could see them putting Thomas in kind of a little more in the interior sometimes. So we'll see what happens. Anything else that oh, hey, McVay would have a roster in the Super Bowl. Maybe. We'll see. So what, anything else that for either of you gentlemen that you are watching out of camp? And say hey to CDH 410. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Anything else that you're keeping your eye on, either of you gentlemen?
Go for it, Aaron.
It's not so much something I'm just keeping an eye on. It's just and maybe, this of course could be a hindsight is 2020 thing, but going back to the preseason thing, I still think they matter a lot. Kyler Murray's performance in the week 2 against the Chiefs was absolutely bad and was kind of a foreshadowing microcosm of how the season actually wound up. And so I'm not saying that we need to invest 200% into these things, but you do what you do with the little things determines how you do a lot of the major things. And of course, like the Cardinals got away with that for 7 weeks, and then Murray got hurt, and then all of a sudden the NFL caught up, and for whatever reason it was there. And once again, hindsight is 2020, but I still think preseason is highly important, especially with you got Hollywood Brown in there. They only have 3 games. How much are they going to play them? How is Trey McBride going to incorporate in the offense? How is Marco Wilson going to look, having a full year under his belt and probably getting maybe starter reps, dare I say. So that's what I would really take away from this is, and yeah, but that team was going to be bad and everybody knew it. And Steve Keim set the team up to fail.
Yeah. I mean, like when it comes to preseason, I think it's important to get some reps for some players who may be new in the system. I think it's really important I think it's a good chance for some younger players who aren't going to necessarily be playing much early in the season to get some game action. Obviously, it's important for, getting some looks at players when the team's making roster decisions. But there was a quantitative analysis done that was published. I've referenced this before on PFF a few years ago, and I know not everyone loves PFF, but they looked at how predictive preseason football was for regular season, and they looked at a lot of different dimensions. They looked at, is it predictive in terms of player performance, but they also looked at, is it predictive in terms of play calling, and decisions and how coaches make decisions and formations. Do you use, the percent of things out of this formation, does that predict? And the conclusion of these data were not at all. Nothing in the preseason tells you a lick about what the team will do in terms of how players will perform, how coaches will coach, formations that they will run. So I'm not saying there's nothing that matters there. There are habits, I'm sure, that matter there, in terms of how you prepare. But I'm always, when it comes to preseason, for me, preseason is about, let's see, I want to get a look at the rookies. I want to see how they're looking because I might not see some of them later in the season. I want to see who's getting on the field because that might give me an idea who is and isn't making the roster. So, as you would say, Aaron, just a little rebut there. but I'm sure there's some habit things, to your point, that are important, in terms of how they prepare. Real quick, I want to say hey to Robert Moore, another writer for AZ Sports Underground. Appreciate you being here. Anything else out of camp that interests either of you gentlemen that you wanted to talk about, or anything else you wanted to kind of touch on before we kind of start working towards wrapping up?
I'm all about the lines, baby. Build the lines, build the D line, build the old line. I'm tired of, I don't care what skill players we have if we can't block for them. I don't care.
Those guys talk my language.
Yeah, I don't care what awesome, sexy DB that we have that can also return punts and do all that stuff if he's the one making the tackles after an 8-yard run by a running back through the hole. So what's going to happen with Will Hernandez, man? He's paired up with Sean Kugler again? Is he going to come out and be that dude that everybody kind of predicts he will be, or is he going to be the New York Giants Will Hernandez? Is Justin Pugh able to put on enough weight again after the picture that came out, 4 to 6 weeks ago? I have a little bit of an inside source on that situation, and it looks like he is trending towards that way. But is he going to come out and be the Justin Pugh that we know of and that he can be? And then who's going to really grasp that right tackle spot? Are we going to have to see Josh Jones at some point, who just scared me every time he was on the field last year? It just scared me whenever he was there. Is Rodney Hudson going to come back to form? Like, I don't care about it. We have the most skilled players we've ever had. We've never had this depth at wide receiver. And I'm talking about not just depth and you can kind of count on guys. No, you're talking about skill, like 1 through 4 on receiver, that you can be like, he can do this, they can do that. Same thing with tight end. We've never, ever, ever had this depth at tight end since the Cardinals have been in Arizona, ever. Saying you can argue running back as well too. with Darrell Williams, with John
I
Connor,
thought Tim
obviously.
Hightower Beanie Wells is pretty dang good.
But they're talking about Eno Benjamin right now. And the big guy that we just Deontay Ingram, they're like, wow, he's bigger than we thought. He's going to be able to do some things. So they're talking about 4 backs now. So my point is, we have all these skill position players. We could all argue that this is the best depth at each position that we've had. We could argue we've had the best quarterback that we've ever had, definitely long term, and not maybe a season or here or there. But it's not going to matter if that offensive line can't show up on Sunday. So how is the offensive line going to show up? Who's going to go out there and take the battle? And what's it going to actually look like? Is Kyler going to have to use of legs? Nothing else matter. I promise you, nothing else will matter, because if that offensive line does not block and does not open up those holes, the defense is going to be right back out there after a 3-and-out. Period. Yeah. Kyler will not have time, and he'll be running for his life again. And we saw how that worked out.
I'm
sorry to get so animated. I'm pissed off at their offensive line.
Nah, man, listen, real talk.
I've been saying that the whole summer.
Yeah. Facts. No, I'm cautiously optimistic about the offensive line. I mean, if you look at it, we brought back the whole starting line except we brought in Will Hernandez. So in my view, his rookie year, he played really well, struggled the next couple of years. Obviously, as you mentioned, he's back with his college coach in Kugler. Even if he's the same guy he was with the Giants, that's what we had at right guard last year, right? In terms of the play. So if he's any better, that's an improvement. And Josh Jones at guard, was a concern. But when he played at tackle here and there, he played well, which is what he played at, University of Houston. So, having him back at swing tackle, I think, is a better fit. I was a real big fan of the 2 rookie guards they drafted, Lasita Smith and Marquise Hayes. So I'm interested to see what happens to them. Actually, if you look at this offensive line, basically they moved on from, Max Garcia, added the 2 rookies and Will Hernandez. It's actually, I think, it's deeper than it was last year, in my opinion. So now we need guys to step up. We need Hernandez to play well. We need the newly extended DJ Humphreys to rebound, but
to be DJ Humphreys, right? We need him to be him.
100%.
You need to play like you're getting paid.
Yeah, right. Real quick, say hey to Diego Perez. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you stopping by. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. It's funny though, because you see how much of a difference Rodney Hudson makes. Because with Rodney Hudson out of this equation, all of a sudden that offensive line that at least I feel optimistic about looks a lot worse, because then Pugh's at center, right? And then is Hernandez your right guard, and then your left guard, is it one of the rookies? Is it Justin Murray? He's a little banged up right now. I think he's going to be out for a couple weeks. Is it Josh Jones? Having Hudson back changes the calculus across that line so much, right?
Did you see what I changed my Twitter name to today?
A cautiously optimistic coach. I did see that. that might have been semi-intentional, right?
There you go.
So I don't know. I know I've asked this a few times. Any before we kind of wrap up and get out of here, anything else y'all want to mention or bring up?
I don't got nothing.
Cleaned out the notebook. Okay, awesome.
So far until tomorrow.
Right. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to kind of wrap this up. It's been a great stream. Appreciate you folks in the chat. JP just dropped in here. His DJ. No, I think he's got this miraculous cure for that stomach bug that's called "I just got paid." So I think he's going to take that "I just got paid" pill and be miraculously better. Silverwolf saying, hope everyone has an awesome week. Nice to meet you, Coach Evan B. So everyone in the chat, real quick, if you haven't, Evan's YouTube channel for his podcast is in the description. So please be sure you go subscribe. Love to see him get his subscriber count out. Go follow him on Twitter. Obviously follow Aaron, our good friend here on Twitter. Definitely appreciate you both. So on our way out, Aaron, why don't you give us a quick shout out to the folks and let everyone know what you're working on, anything you want to mention on our way out here.
So there's a lot of regulars in chat, so you know where I'm at Raising Zona, and site expert there. So just really trying to come up with some more analysis stuff with rosters, positions, and of course they're having a reaction into a deeper dive of Humphrey's contract that's going to be coming up soon. So we'll take a look at it, and we got a bunch of new writers, so appreciate you guys coming on. Even just a follow or like helps us out tremendously. So appreciate you guys in advance.
Awesome. Evan, thanks for being here. I know folks are let's get Evan back on here. So getting some rave
we
reviews.
will. No
So
worries. No worries.
Yeah, we'll have you back for sure. You're part of the family now with our good buddy Aaron here and Kyler, who's out in the infirmary today. Evan, tell the folks where to find you. Anything you're working on, anything you want to shout out.
Believe it or not, you can now find me on AZ Sports Underground, right? Gonna come out with my first article next week. Just still playing out time and what the best day of the week and time for me to kind of do all this fun stuff that I have in my head to get down on paper. But I'll be announcing that as well too. Otherwise, you can catch me on He's on Fire podcast. Just look that up anywhere: Spotify, Google Playlists, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all that stuff. At Coach Evan B on Twitter, at He's on Fire Pod on Twitter as well too. So we would appreciate you guys showing up. We talk everything Arizona sports, primarily Suns and Cardinals, because they're the good ones right now. But I am looking forward to college football getting back. I know I was talking to you like a week ago, Joe, and I was like, I just don't even know if I want to watch college football. Well, here we are. It's getting close, and I'm looking forward to some of the games, just like to go back into that glutton for punishment thing. But covering as much as we can over there. Right now, we're just on Sundays, but we're going to be coming on Sundays and Wednesday nights again throughout the season and the NBA season. So come check us out. He's on Fire Pod. Really happy to be here. My debut on the Cardinal Rule was awesome. I appreciate you, Joe, for reaching out to me, getting me on here, getting me on the site, and letting this relationship develop. So it's been great. Good things are coming, but I really need a good Cardinals season under my belt this year, I think.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both. Well, yeah, appreciate you being here. You knocked it out of the park on your debut. Definitely glad to have you. We'll definitely have you back. And again, I know folks in the chat have really enjoyed having you here with us. So yeah, and you all know where to find me at JoeCamo13 on Twitter. Hopefully you're already subscribed to the Cardinal Rule. And definitely check out AZ Sports Underground, the site that Kyler Bird and I have started. We just in the first couple of weeks had 1,000 page views, which, for a site that's up and running for a long period of time, that's not a lot, but for a brand new site that just got off the ground, we're really excited. So we appreciate all of you folks. Whoops. Or I think Evan stole my spot.
I give you a cheers, but you
finished already. Oops. Yeah, well, listen, if you're starting, this is why starting quarterbacks don't want to stay off the field for long, because that backup comes in. So are we going to start calling you Drew Bledsoe? And then so Aaron, just
Colt
Kyler,
McCoy 2.0, baby.
Right. So yeah, so appreciate you being here. As I always do on the way out, I'm going to throw up the shout out to my channel members, just to show my appreciation for your support of the channel. Thank you everyone for being here. This was a blast. We'll see y'all next Tuesday on the Cardinal Rule. Peace, everyone.